Leviticus 16 through 20 is mostly about the annual Day of Atonement and the laws for the Israelites about blood, sex, and worship. To quickly and easily memorize what's in these 5 chapters, first remember the shape they make on the Bible Recall Memory Palace. Leviticus 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. In summary, Day of Atonement, laws about blood, laws about sex and worship, be holy and various laws, worship, holiness, parents, sex. If you can remember what is in every chapter of Leviticus, the rest of the Bible will be a breeze. Most of the Bible is a narrative with many interesting side stories that weave into the bigger narrative. Leviticus is less interesting on the surface, which makes it harder to remember. But these laws about sacrifice, cleanliness, and the holiness and purity of the Hebrews, when you understand these laws as the backdrop to the culture and society in later books, the rest of the Bible becomes that much more interesting. These are the laws for the Israelites in all subsequent books. These were the standards for the Israelites, and they all foreshadow Christ. Leviticus 16 is about the Day of Atonement. The Day of Atonement was an annual ritual the Hebrews performed for the atonement of their sins. The sacrifice is rich with symbolism of the crucifixion and resurrection of the Christ. God commanded that the high priest could only enter the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle once a year. This is where the golden ark rested. It represents our union with God after he redeems the world of its sins. Before the high priest could enter, he had to sacrifice a bull for his own sins. Then he had to perform a ritual sacrifice with 2 goats. A lot would be cast for which goat is offered to Yahweh and which is offered to Azazel. No one today knows with certainty what Azazel means, but the goat dedicated to Yahweh would be sacrificed for the atonement of the sins of God's people. The other goat would be released into the wilderness to Azazel. One goat had to be sacrificed for the salvation of Israel. That goat represents Christ. The other goat would be freed, which symbolizes salvation. If one goat stood alone, it would have to be slaughtered. But with 2 goats, one could be freed. This is why I say 2 goats are better than 1. Leviticus 16 is the centerpiece of Leviticus. Leviticus 17 contains laws about blood. God emphasizes that there is only one place of worship and that blood must not be consumed, or the person who consumes it must be cut off from the people. Blood of hunted animals must be drained and covered with dirt. The life of a creature is in its blood, and blood must not be eaten. Leviticus 18 contains laws about sex and worship. Chapter 18 defines illegal incestuous relations. Men must not lie with women who are menstruating, or with their neighbors' wives, or with other men. And in this section, it says children must not be offered to Molech, a god, as a sacrifice. In Genesis 22, when Abraham offered his son as a sacrifice, what would have been shocking thousands of years ago was not Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son, but God's willingness to provide a substitute. This is symbolic of Christ. Sacrificing children to other gods is detestable to the God of Abraham and Moses. Leviticus 19 emphasizes the holiness of the Israelites and contains various laws. This is a smorgasbord of laws. As you read them, imagine how it would have impacted the culture of these freed Hebrew slaves when they collectively agreed to these moral principles. Leviticus 20 is about worship, holiness, parents, sex. Once again, a section pertaining to maintaining pure sexual relations also incorporates the immoral nature of killing newly born children. God detests the killing of the helpless, and those killings often correlate with immoral sexual practices. Let's reinforce what you are learning from the Bible Recall Memory Palace. Which chapter is about worship, holiness, parents, sex? Leviticus 20. Good. Keep guessing. Which chapter contains laws about sex and worship? Leviticus 18. Yes, Leviticus 18 and 20 have some similarities. Try to remember them as a pair. What is most important is that you are generally familiar with what is in each one. That will make it easier for you to learn more about them down the road. The deeper your studies get, the more interesting they become. Which chapter is about the Day of Atonement? Leviticus 16. This is a big deal chapter. Leviticus 16. Two more. Which chapter contains laws about blood? Leviticus 17. Laws about blood. And which chapter says to be holy and contains many various laws? Leviticus 19, a very chaotic seeming chapter on its surface. Great work. Memorize what is in every chapter of the Bible, and together we can change the world. Amen.